Hello Reborners, my name is Karen and this is Making Dolls with Karen. We have a new baby on the table. It's Alma Awake. She's a real born from Bountiful Baby, so she doesn't have a sculptor. She's awake, so she'll need eyes, and we're gonna start her today. As usual, we're gonna start with her enhancements, and I always like to start with blue. Blue is the one that I want to be closest to the bottom layer of her paint, because it's the most undertone that you can get, I guess is what I'm looking for. You wouldn't want any blue to be as a top layer or anything, because it's too stark and bold. This doesn't have, I didn't dip these brushes, so they may not even have any blue in them. This one has a little bit, but only a very, very tiny bit. Nope, no can do with that one. Let's see about this one. Oh, this is not good. That looks red. That's not blue. That's red. Let me put that in the red one. Let me get something to wipe that off. No, just give me anything. I need to wipe that red off. I don't have any dried up blue. That's putting a little on her. I thought I dipped these brushes. I know I did, but it's just not putting the darkness of blue that we're going to need for it to show after a bake. Yeah, that's not good enough. There's a little in this brush, and it is putting some on her, but it's just not dark enough. I'm gonna have to do it 3 or 4 times probably. It's not gonna show when we start putting paint on it because it's too light. I may have to just dip it now and try to use some wet blue. Where is the blue anyway? Oh, way back here, okay. I don't like using the wet because it runs and drips and gets everywhere. But when you don't have any choice, you don't have any choice, so here we go. Just gonna mix it up really, really good. Wipe as much of it off the brush as we can, and hope it's not gonna be drippy. I don't like it when it runs. And this is very, very light. Using wet paint is very light. It doesn't give you the same thing as dry does. But, you know, we're in a pinch, so may have to reapply this a couple times. Not sure, but I'm gonna put a little bit on her forehead. Seems to show a little better when you're making a big swatch of it like this. But when you just do it in the corner of the eye, so you're only putting the tiniest little amount, so it doesn't show as well. And that's not particularly dark anyway. You can barely tell there's any color on her. If you can even tell at all on camera, I don't know. Because, well, it's wet. Wet paint dries much, much lighter, so you're not getting the color that you really want. So in order to compensate, you have to put it on several times. I'm gonna put a little more on her forehead. We don't want her super blue, but I do want her a little bluer than she is. And I am going to kabuki that just a little bit because it needs to feather out just a little. It's not dark, but it kind of has a hard stop. I don't want that. Well, I don't know. She might not have much blue on her. But anyway, I did her blue, but like I said, it's not very dark. I'm also going to go ahead and blue the bottom of her feet. Sometimes this also doesn't show, but usually it will. She's got a little hair stuck to her, there we go, to her sealer. Yeah, this is not going to work very well. Evidently, when you're using wet paint, you need a much darker color of blue. I haven't used wet paint to do enhancements in so long that I just really forgot it needs to be much, much darker for the blue to show. I made this light because really the only thing I ever do with it is either a wash or I dip my brushes in it to get them kind of bluish. So you can't even see that at all. It's just not even much need to even do it because you can't see it. So we're going to dispense with the blue for right now. I'm just going to go ahead and dip the rest of these brushes. So next time, let's see if this one has any dry in it. Nope. So next time, they'll already be dry for the next doll. Don't forget to dip your brushes. This is a lesson. Alma's not going to have much blue on her because I can't get any to stick. It's just too... I'm not going to mix special blue just for her to have blue around her eyes and a tiny dot on the bottom of her feet. I can almost see that little tiny bit on the bottom of her feet. I'm going to try this bigger brush and see if it'll put a little more on there. And then we're going to move on if it doesn't work. I can almost see that. It's almost there. You can almost see it. And maybe that's enough this time. I don't really put that much blue, so if I have to leave it out, it's not really such a big deal. Some people don't even expect to see any blue at all on their doll. So, it's gonna have to do. That's about the size of it. That's about all the blue I use anyway. I'm going to move on to a little bit of purple now. I sometimes put purple on my doll and sometimes I don't. Usually it's if they have some little wrinkles or certain things on their face that make the purple show a little bit, and Alma's got it. She's got a few wrinkles coming up and a few wrinkles above her brow that would look much better if they were enhanced with a little bit of purple. Hopefully my purple brushes are going to work, and they are. Purple does show pretty good after you have dabbed it a little bit and baked it and everything, and it shows up as a shadowy enhancement to a wrinkle or something. It can be overused easily though. You don't want to do that. You want to just get that right amount on there. On these little, I'm going to try one of these skinnier brushes for her little tiny wrinkles that I want to enhance. And we're just going to do it right into those little lines. And there's a high probability you can see this because it's kind of dark. I think, anyway. I don't know. Can you see it? She's got, she's a kind of big doll. She's got a big nose. She's got larger lips. Her ears still look very tiny, though, for a doll her size. Anyway, that's got her nose a little bit colored. What you want to do is, I used to put a little puddle of paint in there and hope it would dye the inside of the nose, but never really did. You just want to swirl your brush around in there and just paint the inside rim of the nose. I'm going to put a little under her lip down here in this little funny looking little shape under her lip right there. And a little bit under her chin down here. It won't be dark. We're not looking for dark or to be able to tell it's purple even. We're just looking for that effect that makes it look a little bit shadowy. More shadowy than you would normally see if it was just a flat area on their face. It's just very subtle. And when the paint goes over it, it'll have a little bit of a shadowy effect. This one is running out of paint already. These little skinny brushes just don't hold much. But if you have any little marks that you want to enhance, this is the way to do it. I just enhanced the corners of her mouth a little bit with purple as well, because, well, there's a crease there. And that's about it. I don't want to do any more with purple. Purple and blue are used very, very sparingly, as is yellow. I'm going to move on to some red. I think I'm going to skip the yellow. I've been a little bit disillusioned with yellow. It's beautiful on the doll, it really is, but when it's way, way under like that, it really doesn't show that much. It does have an effect, but the effect is not really obvious, really. You can, if you put two dolls together and you put yellow on one and you didn't put yellow on the other one, you could probably tell that this one had a little slight tone to its face that the other one didn't have. But as far as going, yeah, yellow really enhanced her, you're not going to really experience that. Anyway, we're going to move on to some red, which is my favorite color to enhance with. And I have a lot of red brushes, so I can do all the red that I want to on my doll with dry brushing. I'm going to brush across her lips a little bit, which is not something that I recommend really, but I want to just give her a starter color on her lips. And it's okay if you get a little bit of this on her face, because you're going to blush her face anyway. You don't want to get dark colors on her face when you're really painting her lips for real with the other paint. You don't want to get that on her face. But this color right here is perfectly okay if a little bit gets on her face, because like I said, you're going to blush her face anyway. And we just gave her a starter lip color. Let's see if I do have a swab. I'm running out of swabs. I don't know if I have any more in my storage drawer over here or not, but I don't want to stop working on Alma to go look for them, so I'm just going to wait till later to look for them. As long as I still have one I can brush her face with, I'm good. So it looks blushed a little bit, and then I'm going to color her nose a little bit with this, because the tip of their nose is usually a little bit redder than the rest of their nose, slightly. And this is coming out very light, which is what we want. We don't want dark, heavy stuff on their face. I'm also going to try to put some of this in her nose, because it will darken up the inside of her nose a little bit. I'll put some over here on this side. I'm going to swipe a little bit on her eyes, but you don't want a lot on their eyes, because it just gives them that little sleepy baby eye look when they have a little bit of pink on their eyes. You know how when a baby gets really sleepy, they rub their eyes a little bit, and it gives them that pinkish color around their eyes. It's very, very cute, and it makes them just look like a sleepy, sleepy little baby. We may give her some special marks, like, I don't know, we may give her something like a scratch or something. We don't want to do it to every baby, but I'm just stuck on them scratches, I'm telling you. I really like them. They're just cute, and babies do scratch themselves. At one time or another, I bet every baby has scratched themselves. If not right after they were born, then when they got a little bit older and mom forgot to cut their nails, they'd end up scratching themselves a little bit. Okay, she's got a slight little pink nose. I'm going to give her slight little pink ears as well. I like that on my babies too. I like them just to be slightly, not starkly red or anything, but slightly darker than the rest of her body's going to be. Very slight. And these are going to be slight enhancements, because once they bake, they're going to be much, much lighter than they are now. Don't forget to do the back of the ears, and try to do it without getting any on her head. Her head would not be blushed like that, right around the back of her ears. We're just going to brush it on the best we can and get it covered on her ears as much as we can. We don't want any part of her ears to look like it didn't get painted, because that's going to look funny. Why is her ears blushed except the bottom of her earlobe or something like that? You know. We want it to look even and uniform, like she really did get some blush. And then we're going to do this here the same way. We may have to switch brushes because it's starting to run out, and you have to rub way too much to get it on there. Even this very dry paint that's been sitting up for 2 or 3 days, we know the brush is dry. You can just feel it by touching it to your hand. It feels absolutely completely dry. But even with it that dry, the paint that comes out looks a little bit shiny. But when you touch it, it does not feel wet, but in a way, it kind of is still wet. It looks shiny, and shiny paint usually means there's at least some moisture in it. And I guess if it was really bone dry, it feels bone dry, but it's just not. If it was really bone dry, probably nothing would come out of it. I'm not sure for a fact about that, but I let them sit sometimes for a week, and they still will put out paint. If they've just been sitting overnight, you're going to get a very wet paint on your doll. It'll be a little better than using actual wet paint, but it won't be as good as this drier paint. That's why I have 3 jars of red brushes, because I use so much red on my dolls. It really enhances their look a lot better than just a plain face. I'm going to switch brushes now because this one is running out, and I'm having to brush a little more than I want to with it to get it to color, and that's just going to give you a much more, I don't know, you're going to start to see that it's different. I don't know how to put it really. It's not quite rusty looking or anything like that, but it's not quite as smooth as it would be if you put it on a little bit less brushing, you know. I don't really know how to explain it, but that's what I'm calling it. It needs to be a little less. Let's put this up. That's the blue one. I need the red one. Oh, here it is. When you're putting it on the actual face, you want it to be super smoothed out. You don't really need to take away the color. The color is fine, but what you need to do is make it where it gets lighter, 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 lighter stop. You don't want it to be dark stop, you know, like that. That's too stark and too much of a hard stop. We just need it to feather out to where you can't really tell. Well, you can tell that there's some here and there's not any there, but it's not, you know, it's feathery looking. And it doesn't have a real hard stop. It still has a stop. I'm not going to say you can't see the stop still, because you can. But you don't want to see it boldly. You want to see it kind of, that it fades a little before it just stops. And that's much better than it just stopping. And don't worry about it being too dark. You're probably not going to get it too dark on this part of the face, because there's just not that much paint in the brush. It does have plenty paint in it to do this job, but once you dab it, it gets a lot lighter, and then when you kabuki it, it also gets lighter. You're not going to put it too dark unless you're getting super concentrated amounts of really, really dark, thick paint that you mixed up too dark or something. If your paint's just a normal color that you would put a layer on your doll with, it's not going to be too dark to blush her with. And sometimes it even fades to too light. So I'm going to put a little up here on her forehead as well. I do like to have a little bit of blush on her forehead. I used to do it way back in the day when I first made dolls, and I called it my signature mark. And I don't know if it's needed, but I put it on every doll I make. And you can make up your signature mark. You can use any kind of mark you want to. And it almost ensures, if you have a secret mark, that people don't really know that's your signature mark, but it almost ensures that you can identify your doll when you see it. You can look at that doll and say, yes, I made that doll, or no, I did not make that doll. It doesn't have my signature mark, you know. But it's a good chance somebody else is using that mark too, so it's not a guarantee that you're going to be able to identify your doll. But I can almost immediately tell if a doll is one I made. I'm going to put that up because I don't think I'm going to kabuki anymore. Her face is all finished now. except for her layers. And if I put the darker lip stuff on her at this step, which I probably won't, I'm going to now try to blush her feet a little bit. I have plenty brushes, so I don't have to depend on those two brushes that I was using to be the only brushes I have with red in them. Now, a lot of people do just the bottom of their foot, and I've done that for several dolls now. Or you can do the entire foot, or you can do the bottom of the foot and just the toes on the front of the foot. Either one of those is going to be fine. They're all just acceptable if you like that particular way of painting. Some people want the entire foot to be redder. Some people want just the bottom of the foot. And some people want the toes also to be redder. And whatever you pick, that's a personal choice, and you can do that. Sometimes I do the whole foot, but mostly I do the bottom of the foot. I always make sure the bottom of the foot is done, even if no other part of the doll's foot is going to be done, because it's really cute for them to have a pinkish foot. It just looks cute. And on the top, you can actually just do the toes if you want to. If you do the toes, though, on the top, don't forget to do the sides of the toes and in between the toes as well, because just the tops and the bottoms of the toes wouldn't be just, it would be the whole toe or just the bottom. If you're doing the bottom, you can just do the bottom, you know. But don't forget these tips as well, the tips of the toes up here at the top. If you're going to do the toes on the front, the entire toe needs to be painted. Otherwise, it looks kind of silly. And pink toes are kind of cute on a doll, too. They just look adorable. There, that foot's done. Her toes are pink. The bottom of her foot is all pink except the blue part. And now I'm going to do this one. There's many ways you can do it. You don't have to conform to anybody else's idea of what your doll should look like. These are just different ways. I try to do different dolls differently so everybody can see, oh, if you do the whole foot, it looks like this. If you do just the toes, it looks like this, you know. So you can see how they look and make, you know, informed decisions on what you want to try on your doll. And you really can't hardly mess up at all with this dry painting. It's so simple. It's just so simple and clean. You don't get a lot of buildup down in your crevices on the bottom of the foot. All them little wrinkles and creases on her foot can get actually very ugly looking if too much paint gets in them. And this dry painting doesn't do that, because a lot of that liquid that, you know, when you're painting with really wet paint from your jar, a lot of the liquid runs into the crevices, and if you can't dab it all out, then you have these dirty looking creases on their feet, and they look like they went out and wiggled their toes in the mud or something, and it looks kind of icky. Dirty creases are very bad, and so that's why I use this dry painting. I just fell on it accidentally. Okay, now on the hands, there's also a variety of things you can do on the hands. I'm not going to use this really fat brush to do her hands because I want to do it very carefully. You can actually paint the whole hand. You can paint just the fingers like I did the toes. You can, but also there's another way that I saw some people painting their dolls, and I liked the effect that it gave the doll. And what they did is they painted the hand in sections, like on this finger right here. I don't know if you can see it, but she's got little lines where the finger would bend. And they didn't paint that. They paint like this top section, I'm going to paint it. And then they skip down to this middle section and put a little there, and then skip down to the bottom. You might not can tell I did that. You might see no color, and you might only see that it's pink, but it's not really all pink. It almost has like stripes on it. And the same thing on the backs of the fingers. Now don't forget, if you do the backs, you have to do the sides. But just on the sections you're coloring. If you're not coloring the entire finger, you only need to do the sides on the part you are coloring. And then it almost has that each individual little section of her finger is a little bit pinker. I don't know if you can even see that. It's kind of light. This particular brush doesn't have much paint in it. But I really do like to do the tips of the fingers because it gets the nail some paint on it. And that helps with when you're trying to color the nails as well. Oh, one thing we didn't do is vein her yet. We're gonna need to do that as well. This just doesn't have enough paint in it. I'm gonna get another brush. These little tiny brushes hold very tiny, tiny bits of paint. So you're not gonna get very much done with one brush. You're gonna have to switch a bunch of times. And that's why I have so many of them. Because I do want to use smaller brushes for these tighter areas, but I don't want to run out of brushes. And it's real easy to do that. Switching brushes, sometimes you get one that has more concentration in it, and your color gets way, way dark. Where before it was kind of light, and now it's dark, and so you have to kind of dab it to make it the same color, or go back and put more on the other fingers that were lighter. I'm choosing to go back and put some more on the other fingers because I do want them a little bit darker than they're coming out. And this brush seems to have a little bit more paint in it, so I can do that. I've seen a lot of dolls painted this way with just the little segments of their fingers and hands painted, and it looks very, very cute. It's almost like the creases don't get any. Just the tips in the middle and the bottom of the fingers get it. And then you go back and you crease them with a crease color. Changing again. If you're having to rub too long, it's not worth it. Just switch brushes. I found these brushes at a bargain price, so I bought several sets of them. So I could have a separate set for each color, so I didn't have to wash my brushes between every single use. Okay. Will you bring me my phone? Did you get an alert? No. I don't usually get one till after I notice it too. Excuse me, I have to check my phone. That detergent smells so good. That's probably my alert right there. Yep, that was my alert. I got my alert right when I turned my phone on. Well, sorry y'all. Yep. So it'll be time to pay bills after a while because my check hit the bank. That's what she was showing me, that her check hit the bank. And we both get the same check, so if hers hit, mine hit too. So, and it just hit. Chime gives you your money early, and if you get with somebody who already has Chime, and you use their code to sign up for Chime, you both get money. You get $100 after your first direct deposit hits the bank. And they get $100 as well, which makes it kind of sweet, getting money for referring people. Now you can tell better that her fingers are they look kind of striped, but they're not going to look that weird when she's painted. I'm also going to paint all the little segments inside her open hand. Her other hand is closed and we can't do that. But this hand is partially open, so we can do it on this side of her hand that's open. Let me get another brush and brush it in there in each little segment, just a little bit of paint to make it just look like her little hands are sort of blushy, but her creases are not. I don't know why that looks good, but I've seen it on people's dolls, and it does look good. It indeed looks good. And then on the very back of her hand, I just put a little swirl of red. We just want a slight little redness to the back of her hand. It's very, very slight. And that's it. That's what I do to the hands. And then I'm going to do this one the same way. It's going to be a little bit harder because her fingers are closed down. So the tips of some of her fingers won't get to be done because they're covered up by another finger, which is fine because I don't really want to do that much painting on this hand. So we're just going to paint the parts that are actually sticking out that we can see. And that, ooh, this one's got a lot of dark paint on it. This must be one I used when I was painting for real, a layer of paint on the doll. So this hand has got the potential to actually be very, very dark. We don't want it to be too dark because it'll be starkly different from the other hand. Oh, I hate it when their nails are just stuck way down there like that. You almost can't paint them. It's like if you put any paint down there, it's going to color their hand too, and you don't want nail color all over their hand. It just looks like you can't paint. So I hate it when they're like that. And she's got one folded up finger that's so folded up that the nail is touching the palm of her hand. And being able to get paint down there is going to be near impossible, in my opinion. But that's my opinion. And there's only one finger and part of her thumb that's sticking up enough to paint the back of it. And the rest of them are touching. They're actually folded completely in half, so you can't put anything on the inside of her hand on that part. But I'm going to do the part of her hand that does show, the part of the palm of her hand, painting the little sections, kind of pinkish, and the best I can. That's all you can do, is the best that you can do. And this hand's almost finished now. I'm just going to put a little bit on the back of her hand, just a tiny bit, dab that a little bit, and now she's pink. She's pink pretty much everywhere she needs to be pink. And let's see, what other color do we want to do? That's about it, I think. Oh yeah, I have to vein her. Now when you're veining, don't forget, we've been over this a lot, but I keep going over it because some people are probably watching this video and it's the very first one of my videos they've ever watched. So when we vein, we want to control our color by how hard we press down. It also controls somewhat how fat or skinny the vein will be. But if you want super, super tiny veins, you're going to have a much sharper pencil than mine. I like to use a rounded tip because it just does the vein the way I want it. And I start way up here on the head where the hair is going to be, because you want to make a squiggly line, at least wavy. You don't want a straight line. Veins are not straight, and we want to have one coming down a little bit on her forehead. Babies have that, but I want to get my squiggle right before I get down to the part where it's going to show. So I start way up here on the head, and I start squiggling. If my squiggle doesn't look right, I adjust it a bit. But anyway, here we go, and we're going to have a very light touch because, believe it or not, we want this to fade beautifully into the background. We don't want a bold, sharp color on her head. And I am using aquamarine for my pencil. Okay, here we go. We're going to have just a super skinny little line coming down her forehead like this. And you can probably see that just fine. But don't worry. I am going to rub it. I'm going to try to use the cleanest part of this sponge I can find. And when you rub it, you don't even have to rub this part up here, but you can. It just blends down enough to where it looks like it's under the skin. It mutes it a little bit. But you're not supposed to be able to see it now. I can see it, but you should not be able to. If you can see it, it's probably too dark. I'm going to put one over here on her temple the same way. Just a very squiggly little line, and I'm going to also blend that one. And believe me, it shows at the end even. This is a fabulous, easy, almost foolproof way to put a vein on your doll. You don't have to worry about runny paint. Is it dark enough? Is it light enough? This works perfect. And it just blends super great into the background. You're supposed to see it only a tiny bit, and that's what we see, a tiny bit. I don't put veins Well, I do sometimes put veins on the legs. I'll just put one like up here on the thigh, like here. And also we're gonna rub that one. And then I'll put one on the thigh on here. I only put them in places where they're gonna show. Some people actually try to use anatomy charts and put them where they're supposed to be. Now, I just think that's too much realism. People just want to see a vein on their baby. That's all it is. And you can see these, but you see them vaguely, and that's the way it should be. And when they're finished, you may not see the entire vein, but that's okay, because that's the way it is. Look at your hand. There's parts where you can't even see the vein, and there's other parts where you do. And that's the way it's supposed to be. I just put it on the outer part of the upper arm and the outer part of the thigh. That's where they're going to see it. And then we're ready for capillaries. Now, capillaries is a totally different thing. Capillaries are made red. You can use Crimson Lake. That's this color. You need a dark, almost burgundy color. Or you can use Tuscan Red. This one's a little bit darker. If you're making an ethnic baby, you definitely want to use Tuscan Red. But you can also use Crimson Lake. That's the one I like the best. And capillaries are super tiny, tiny little veins. I think they're actually arteries, but they're red instead of being blue. Now you can put one on the temple over here. You can put it right across the vein. You can put it beside the vein. You don't even have to put any capillaries if you don't want to. Some people put them on the ears and the eyelids and the nose and everywhere. But you can put as many of these as you want or as few as you want. And once again, you're going to want to press down only to get the color and skinniness that you want. This pencil is much, much sharper, as you can see, because capillaries are super small, very skinny, and superficial looking. But you want them to show enough that you can tell you put a capillary, but you don't want them to be super bold or deep or fat or any of that stuff. So you just make them extra squiggly, almost like, very curly looking. I don't know if you'll be able to see this capillary because it's tiny, tiny, tiny. But you can make them as elaborate as you want to, or as bold and big as you want to. And then we're going to rub it, and then I'm going to show it to you. It's right here on her temple. Can you see it? Sometimes they're visible and sometimes they're not that visible. But you can put no capillaries if you want to, or you can put simple little capillaries that are just like Y-shaped or something, or whatever you want to do. You don't even have to put a capillary on your doll. That's totally optional. Really, anything is optional. You don't have to do any of the steps that I'm doing. These are enhancements. They're things you do to make your baby look a little more real. That's what they're for. They're not meant to be bold or super, or show super bad. You know, they're meant to be under the skin. The more sub-layers or whatever you want, undertones or whatever you want to call them, you do, the more layers your baby's going to have, and that layers give more reality to your doll. Whereas just putting layers on to begin with is going to make them almost flat looking. Even though you're going to put different colors on your doll, it's still not going to have the depth look that when you do your enhancements, undertone enhancements, you know. And that's why I do them, because they just look super good. I love the way they look. And you can also put capillaries on the limbs. Capillaries, I put them in the inside of the wrist right here. I just put one little bitty capillary there. And then I might put one on the back of the wrist right here, one little capillary there. And that's all the capillaries I put. And on the legs, I put them down here by the ankles. It's only iffy if your baby's going to even have a capillary. I don't remember ever seeing capillaries on my real babies. But, you know, people say that babies have them, but, you know, you don't always notice all that on your baby, I guess. But I swear my babies didn't have any capillaries. But this is strictly something you do because you want to. It's not necessary to make a pretty baby. Capillaries just add a little bit of more realism. And if all you're trying to do is make a pretty baby, you can certainly skip this step. This is just what I do. I just want a tiny bit of more of an enhancement that people can go, oh, this baby has capillaries. You know, the more things you do to your doll, usually the more realistic they look. But there is such of a thing as a doll being overdone. And I don't really know what that amounts to, because I don't really do that much to my dolls. I try to keep it simple and something doable that you can do that isn't just really, really difficult. Now, the next thing we're going to attempt is creasing. Creasing is very iffy. I found that no matter how I do the creases, sometimes they don't stay. I've took to using a pencil for that too. I used to use purple, but it looks so fake that now I'm using a color that's closer to a skin tone. This is henna, and you're going to need a sharp pencil for this. Just how sharp depends on how you want your creases to look. You need to be able to get the point down into these creases to make them creased. But you don't want to have any sort of a heavy touch to this at all, because it's going to look super fake if it's dark. I just do a very light touch across the crease like this. I'm going to show it to you as soon as I'm finished doing it. This is a very long crease. It goes almost all the way around her arm. But you can see that now there's a color in that area. And it's very light, and as you're painting, some of that will diminish even, because it is a pencil after all. And we are going to bake this, but there is a chance that your creases will not show at the end. Sometimes they wash out of the little indentations, sometimes they don't. So be prepared, if you want creases, that you might have to redo them. But this is the best way that I can make a clean crease. They just look clean and straight, and they don't look like messy at all. And when I was creasing with a paintbrush, it looked super bad. I just have to say, it did not look good at all. Now, there is such a thing as over creasing, and your baby will look dirty. So you don't want to do all of the creases on a doll. Like, see, I skipped these little smaller ones because there are just too many of them. See, right in here in these little, very, very shallow ones, I just skipped those. Because, like I said, there's such of a thing as over creasing. And on the inside of the hands, I like to only do the bigger creases that are going to look kind of cute when you get finished. You don't want to do every single crease on your doll. It just makes them look too dirty. They look like they had a mud bath or something. Do in between the fingers makes the fingers look like they're separated and just touching each other. If you do the front, you have to kind of do the back. And then I do all those little creases on the fingers where I didn't put any paint, because I was only doing the segments. I do those areas. And where if you have a finger that folds down and touches the hand, you want to do that area to differentiate that the finger isn't just molded into the doll. It looks like it's separate that way. And the same thing with this finger on the side that's also touching the thumb. You want to do that. It just adds a little bit of highlight into that area where it doesn't look so much like it's one big molded piece. It just looks like her finger is laying against her hand. And you don't want to over crease. Remember, the superficial ones, we're not going to do them. That arm's finished. Now I'm going to do this leg. I always do the bottom of the foot, the biggest, deepest creases, because they're going to look the best creased. And yes, it can come out and you may not see it. And at the end, if you want the creases bad enough, you're going to have to redo them sometimes. Not always, just sometimes. But you can do the bottom of the foot, and then on the top of the foot you can do these little creases. They're coming toward the toe. They're kind of deep. The deeper ones are the ones that look the best creased. You can do a couple of lines across her toe. You don't want to do much because, once again, it can look like mud in those creases. It can start. Now on her legs, I don't do all these on the side. There are just too many of them. And it just looks too confusing to have every one of those creases done. But what you're going to want to do is the one on the back of her knee, right back here. And you're going to want to do like maybe some of these deeper ones that are going around her knee up here. to make her knee sort of look enhanced. But you can't just do every one. I mean, you can, but it's confusing. There's just too many lines here, and it just looks too stripy. I don't know. That's about all I'm going to do on that leg. And then this one, the same. I don't do these because they're too close to the body, and you're not going to be able to see them, because when it's up against the body like this, and even when you raise and lower the leg, the body is obscuring these. So, I mean, you can do them. It don't hurt anything, but they're just not going to show when you get finished. But these on the back of the leg will. People like to see creases as well, so a very, very light touch. You're barely letting the pencil run through the crease. And then I'm going to do these deeper ones on the front of the leg right here, just a few of them, because like I said, you want to enhance what the knee looks like, but you don't want to make it confusing. And then down here on the foot, this foot looks like it's collapsing. Usually that's not a problem. When you put the stuffing in, the glass and everything in there, it'll come back out. But sometimes your doll may have some issues. I just had issues with another kid. It was Candy. I sealed her and baked her 2 times, and her head got a fissure in it, and I can't finish her now because she'll bust open. If you get a fissure in your doll, and if it's very big, you're not even going to be able to repair it with vinyl putty. You're going to lose that kit. Well, at least the head. You could always save the limbs if you wanted to swap the limbs out with another doll. And she's got rather big legs, and they're full legs. And I have a kit that has the wrong limbs. Whoever I got it from, I don't remember who, confused the limbs. If you get your crease a little too dark, just take a brush and brush some of it out. It'll usually come out. Somehow they confused the limbs, or maybe they didn't have the correct limbs, I don't know. But they did not disclose that she was going to have the wrong limbs. And she's got some Avery limbs, and they're just not big enough for that kid. They just look too small. So I'm probably going to take Candy's legs, because they're a little bit bigger, and give them to that kid, because, well, it's better than her having the wrong limbs. And the same thing on this hand. We're just going to enhance a few of these little things on the back of her hand. You don't want to do every single one, because believe it or not, paint's going to stick to pencil as well, just like it does to other paint. And if it's too much on there, they're going to start to look really, really dirty. Now we're going to do this one right here in the bend of her arm. Once again, this part won't show, so there's really no need to do it. On her elbow, we'll do this little crease around her elbow, because it just makes it show a little better. This one doesn't really have one. It's very, very superficial. And we can do a few around her hands, like right up here by her wrists. And I did a little bit on her hands. That's really all I want to do. I don't want to do too much. Too much creasing is worse than no creasing at all. And that's all I'm going to do for creasing. That's plenty to do. And I don't crease the face because it's just ugly and scary looking. It makes them scary looking to me. But anyway, that's pretty much enhancements on this baby. We're going to get her into the oven and get her a bake. And when we come back, we should be able to start on her layers then. I try to get the enhancements all in one go, because it's just one bake. That way I try to minimize the bakes as much as possible. You can't just minimize them away, but you can be more careful with your doll by baking them only when they really need it. And that's what I've been trying to do. So I try to get all the enhancements in one go. Sometimes I can't do it. I have to come back and do more because, well, the red didn't show good enough or something. And so I'll end up putting a little bit more on her and baking her a second time. But I think we got it all in one go this time. After her bake, we'll put her first layers on, and we'll do her nails and her lips, the first nails and lip color, and then we'll bake her again, and we'll just keep moving on like that until we get her finished. And that's the best way to do your dolls, just keep going. You have to let them bake, and you have to let them cool before you can do the next layers of paint. But and each layer that you do without baking has to be dry before you go on to the second layer. So if you want to put 2 coats of one color on before you bake, then you're going to make sure the first coat is dry before you go back and put the second coat on. And that's where this nice little hot air gun comes, this heat gun comes in. I got a tip from another artist. She was using it on her doll, and she was explaining how it worked and what an advantage it was to have it. And so I decided, I took her advice. She said, go on eBay and just find the cheapest one you can find. It can even be used, and it works just fine. You just turn it on. This particular one does not have any sort of a temperature control, but it heats. It starts out cooler and it gets hotter and hotter, just like a hair dryer would if you're drying your hair. You know, your head starts to get really, really hot. Well, you don't want to get too close to your doll. You want to hold it back a little bit, and you want to move it around a little bit, because you don't want the doll to get too hot. You could actually end up getting a burn or something like that. But it's plenty good to use to dry the paint. It takes the shininess out, and when the shininess is gone, you know your paint is dry. That's how I tell. If there's any shininess left on the doll, it's not dry enough to put another coat on. And once it's dry, you can put the second layer on and then just bake it in the oven. And you have 2 layers of the same color, so it's 2 layers is better than 1 dark layer. 2 lighter layers is better than 1 dark layer, because the 1 dark layer might come out chalky looking or something because there's too much paint. So you want to do lighter layers and do a couple coats if you need to. But yeah, that's what I do, and it usually works really, really well. But we're going to get Alma into a bake, and when we come back, we'll talk some more about layers, and we'll do some layers. And in the meantime, please remember to like, subscribe, and share, and happy reborning.